Katie McGregor-Bennett. I am your host today of the panel session, Managing the Supply Chain Crisis. Okay, this is a heavy topic, and so far every time I've mentioned it today, everyone's like, oh, good luck with that. so it is a challenging topic for sure, but we're in the middle of it. Hopefully we're coming out of it, and these three fine gentlemen today are going to help discuss some of the ways that we can manage, navigate, and get through the supply chain crisis. So again, I'm Katie McGregor-Bennett. I'm CEO of K&B Communications. We do PR, content, social media in the industry, in the channel, and so I'm just here to kind of help navigate the conversation. I'm joined by Keith James from Crestron, Avi Rosenthal from Blue South Partners, and Jim Sweeney from Hometronics. All right, so let's dive right in, shall we, guys? Quick show of hands in the audience today. Who do we have? We have manufacturers, raise your hands. Distributors, reps, dealers, integrators. Okay, cool. So guys, we got a little bit of the mix. Yep.
That's great.
Beautiful. Okay. All right. So diving right in, but of course I have to unfold my paper here because I have to have my notes. Okay. So guys, all three of you, if you would, and just kind of go down the line here, weigh in on what's changed in the last 6 months to a year with specific regard to the supply chain. Avi, go first, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so first of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Things are getting better. Things are getting better. And they're actually getting better faster than we expected them to get better. So there's a lot of weirdness in the world, right? The weirdness in the world right now has to do with the fact that the economists can't figure out which way things are going, and that's fine, because we ignore that. We're technologists. We don't really care. We're much more interested in, does the box arrive when the box should arrive? And the good news is more boxes are arriving than were before. Things are getting easier. There's something called the bullwhip effect. If anybody's ever heard of the bullwhip effect. Bullwhip effect very simply means that people who all of a sudden are constrained start to order more, thinking that they're going to get more, and then all of a sudden they get more. So it's one of these things where I'm short of something, so I'm going to order 10 of something, and then I order 10 of something again when the first 10 doesn't show up, and the next thing you know, I have 20 of something. And you say to yourself, all right, but now what do I do with 20 of something? I only needed 10 of something. So that's when you talk about the retailers having extra. That's good news for all of us, because if the retailers have extra things, it means there's more room for them to build the stuff that we need them to build. So over the last 6 months, that's exactly what they've been doing. They've been building more stuff for us, and so things are getting better, and things are getting smoother. There's not the long waits at the ports anymore. Truckers are moving. We've averted a nationwide rail strike, so I'm very optimistic from the last 6 months into the next 6 months.
Keith, how about you?
Well, I have to agree with you, Avi. Things are definitely getting better out in the marketplace. In manufacturing, we're seeing a significant pull-in on lead times with the chip shortage. Not with all of the chips, but certainly we are seeing the pull-ins. The word on the street from our intel with our network of suppliers and distributors is that there is some level of demand destruction with the consumer discretionary, and that in turn is freeing up a number of the devices used in the IoT market. We are still seeing some challenges with the power devices that are used in EVs and in automotive, but other than that, we're still fighting the fight. We have shifted from the place and chase, gone back more into a strategic mode with getting our forecasts in with our suppliers because they were refusing them in the past. So definitely things are going into what I would call a new norm in the marketplace.
Good. All right. Jim.
Hi, I'm Jim Sweeney at Hometronics. Yeah, we're seeing a change. So my time managing products and managing supplies coming in is dropped from 60% of my time now down to 30% of the time. We've been successful at managing the customer's expectations and understanding that there is no guarantees of what's going to happen on the project. So now we're finding that we're fortunately going to start being able to eliminate some of those clauses in our contracts, surplus, charges, delays, payment schedules. We're probably going to, beginning of next year, go back to our normal billing out for stuff rather than billing everything out at 100% and hope that the product comes in when the job is ready.
Okay, thanks. So, Avi, kick this off and then work the way down the line again if we would. Details matter. We talked a little bit about this when we were doing the pre-con. Details matter. When a manufacturer cancels on you, chances are another incident took place. Discuss.
Exactly. So the world is a big domino, right? Everything is connected to everything else. If there is a drought in Taiwan and it means that there's not enough water to produce microchips, then you will be affected. If there is a shortage of ships to get from point A to point B, you will be affected. No manufacturer is interested in canceling an order, right? That's not the reason why manufacturers were put here. Manufacturers were put here to supply you with as much product as humanly possible. So when they cancel on you, don't take it personally. Watch the news, understand how the dominoes are affected, understand what's going on in the world, and the more you understand what's going on in the world, the more you can anticipate when you do get that phone call from that rep who says, all right, look, I'm really sorry, the boat didn't come in and we have to cancel this PO, it's gonna take an extra 6 weeks. Because the more you know about those dominoes, the more you can tell your clients about those dominoes, so that when your client, whether it be a builder or a homeowner, doesn't get their device for an extra 6 weeks, they were predisposed to understanding what that situation was. And look, there are many, many different things going on in the world that affect our little piece of the world. There's this little war going on in Ukraine, there are droughts, there are famines, there are storms, there are all kinds of things happening. I mean, if you're in the Southeast right now, don't expect any of your parade that was sitting in Jacksonville to come through any time in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Jacksonville's closed. Anything that was being aired into the Southeast, Memphis is in the line of what's left of Ian right now. Don't expect there to be shipments. If you anticipate these things and understand them, then you can talk to your partners about it, talk to your clients about it, and then once they understand what's going on, it softens the blow. Because things are going to happen. We live in a much more tightly controlled world these days. Everything is much more connected than it was before. And so unfortunately, we're going to be affected by those things even more. If we know they're going to happen, we can anticipate them and adjust around them.
Well said, Avi. You used a key word there, anticipation, right? Anticipation means there's some level of predictability on what's going to happen. It's when there are situations like an earthquake in Japan, right, that affects a number of manufacturers that produce capacitors, or something on a geopolitical span from a potential of a rail strike, which we narrowly averted earlier, right? Those are all touch points that can affect the supply chain, and if it's not a push out, you just might get a cancellation, right? Then on the other hand, there's also what we have in the way of cost opportunists, right? So if these devices, these chips are manufactured in a foundry that just doesn't see merit in running the devices because there's something else out there more profitable, they may throw a cancellation message out inadvertently on short notice, and then all of a sudden it just cascades down right into the end user, our homeowner customer, and it's pretty impactful.
Yeah, so from a dealer's perspective, we can't control the manufacturer. All we can do is really control the expectations of our clients and be able to deliver the product and services to them as quickly and reasonably as possible by building more personal relationships with other dealers that may have something that you need. I'm constantly sending stuff out, inventory to other dealers. I'm constantly getting inventory from other dealers, and then managing the client's expectation of the product and the product final cost.
All right, thanks. Just have to take a quick pause here because we have gone from Queen to Pink Floyd for our soundtrack for today's conversation, which is lovely.
You know, it is the CEDIA floor. There's a lot of audio going around, so hopefully, I don't know if our mics are picking it up or not, but there is quite the concert. I'm trying to figure out which speaker manufacturer it is, but they're doing well. They're doing well.
I like the "We Will Rock You" part. I thought right as we were starting off, that was perfectly timed. Perfectly timed. Okay, all right. So back to the conversation at hand here, Keith. Why is the Yangtze River so important to the future of the tech trade? Oh, tell us.
The Yangtze River. first define the Yangtze River, right? That's like a man-made river that's been put in place decades ago in China along the Shanghai latitude. And the situation with the Yangtze in Shanghai and Suzhou, Wuzhou, even up to Wuhan, is there's a tremendous amount of back-end chip manufacturing in that area. And the whole premise of the Yangtze River is hydroelectric power. And at present, due to the climate change, the droughts that they've endured, the river is well below 50% capacity. And the hydroelectric power being generated is not enough to meet the demand of that area, of the region, primarily due to the extensive heat wave that not only in China, but here in Texas, right, and elsewhere around the world, in Italy, that had a significant impact on weather patterns and rainfall. And there were factory shutdowns occurring on a regular basis over the summer that led to a number of pullouts. Again, it's all about anticipation, right? If you're not aware of it, then you're going to get signals out from supply chain that there's no cancellations, but there's going to be a delay with the availability of the parts that our industry is chasing on a regular basis.
So what I found really interesting about that point that you made, and again in the pre-con before we came on today, was that I don't think that we put enough value into those details. It's kind of going back to the prior point, details matter, right? The more that we know about these events around the world that are impacting our industry, the better job that we can do to defend ourselves. Jim, I'm sure on the integration side, you to make sure that your clientele understand why there are delays and that it isn't just the manufacturer's fault. And I just want to touch on that really quickly because I think as an industry right now, it's become all too easy to bash the manufacturer, villainize the manufacturer who can't deliver the products. And I think that we need to stop doing that. It's all too easy to do, but we need to understand that there are bigger issues taking place globally that are impacting our day-to-day lives here. And we need to become fluent in this conversation so that we help educate a broader audience on what really is going on. Quit bashing the manufacturers. Do not villainize the manufacturers. It's not their fault, okay? So I think we as an industry, we need to rally together. I'm a big community person, so I'm just taking a little moment on my little soapbox right now. We need to rally together, become a community, support each other, find a way to get through this. The end is coming. I'm not going to say the end is near. We will get through this, but we just have to work together to get through it. If we continue to villainize the manufacturers, we're only killing ourselves slowly. We need to stop doing that. So I'm off my soapbox now. All right, so guys, methodologies on handling cash flow. Probably tougher than ever right now, probably more challenging than ever going forward. So if you could just work way down the line, give us some tips.
Yeah, it's all about placing bets. So there are players out there that are willing to make poor short-term decisions for what they consider to be long-term gains. And I would caution you against that. Your distributors, your manufacturers, your suppliers are all in this with you. The idea here is to build partnerships, to understand where they're coming from, explain your pain to them, help them understand where you're coming from, and meet in the middle. So in a cash flow situation, a lot of times you will have a client that doesn't understand why, if they paid you for a product, they haven't been able to get that product. It's all about managing expectations. Keep in mind that you're not the only industry, you're not the only person. If they're building a house, there are shortages in lumber, there are shortages in appliances, there are shortages in roof tiles. They're being hit with this from all different sides. What your goal should be in the cash flow is to not be the thorn in their side, to give them more angst over it. You should be the one, even though you may not be hitting your targets or your dates, you should be the one helping them understand why their home is 6 weeks delayed. And in doing so, you will be top of their list when they go to pay a bill. If you're just another thorn in their side, then you're going to be pushed aside just like everybody else is. And the same is true of your distributors, the same is true of your manufacturers. It's important to have open dialogue with each one of them, help them understand where your business is and what's going on in your world, so they can make business decisions up the line. Again, remember, we're all part of the same domino chain. If you're not paying, they're not getting paid, they're not being paid, they're not getting paid, they're not able to pay. So everybody has to have that open dialogue and explain what's going on and help everybody understand what's happening. The factories are feeling the pain as well. So we're all in this together. Open dialogue is the communication point in this cash flow situation.
Yeah, thank you, Avi. So from the standpoint of the manufacturing side of the business, right, it's for the members in CEDIA, it's so important to get your orders in early, right, because you're basically part of a lineage, and it's all about demand. And what we need to focus on is risk, right? What is the risk if you get your orders in early and you have a premise of a potential job, right? Generally, we've been accustomed to a spot buy, right? You have a contract signed, you're looking at a schedule of equipment, and you put your orders in, and then you react to it, right? Now, you need to recognize a forecasted demand on that potential project, and also determine if your distributors or your manufacturers have terms that allow a cancellation with no risk, right? If you have the ability to cancel an order that you put into a manufacturer and you're in line and you just push it out, well, then you can start treating that inventory like an asset. Even though it's virtual, you don't yet have it, you can plan for it, and then you're in a much better place from the standpoint of looking at your bank statements.
Jim, any thoughts?
Okay, so from a dealer's standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, we had to change our pricing structure. So basically, when we were doing new construction, it was 50, 40, 10. Now we're anywhere between 70 to 90% upfront if the clients want the product ordered. Most of our clients have agreed to do that. I've had a couple that decide to just make the down payment and run the risk that the product is not going to increase. Unfortunately, when we do our change orders, it's taking prices out, putting the new prices in, and this costs a lot of clients a good percentage of money, and then understanding the surcharges. But we used to take the money deposit, get the job on the schedule, order the equipment as we need it. Now we just ordered every single thing for that client, and it'll just sit in our warehouse until it's ready to go into the job, if we fortunately get it in on time, which has always been the big issue for the last 2 years.
Okay. Jim, I'm going to stick with you on this one. What have the last couple of years taught you in terms of managing your inventory and also managing your clients' expectations? You touched on it a little bit, but expand a little bit more on managing the client expectation.
So managing the client's expectations is tough on normal and good times, but you're keeping the clients up to date on what's changing. Like the gentleman talking about all of the tragedies that are happening out there with the rivers and everything else, and the surcharges that are coming in. When that information is given to the client months in advance, or as quickly as you can give them the information, it doesn't become a shock the day you show up and say, okay, you owe me more money. Or when we're always loyal to particular brands. Now our thing is to pick the particular brand and then tell them that basically we're going to get an AVR of at least equivalent pricing or performance of what we quoted them for. As far as inventory, my warehouse is stocked. And for me, I was always 30 years of just-in-time inventory. The stuff would come in the same week that it was supposed to go out. I did inventory just on surge protectors the other day. I got 244 surge protectors in stock. Hopefully I will sell them all. I would maybe have 2 surge protectors in stock. AVR receivers as they come in, 10, 12, whether we're going to use them or not. If I can't put them into a job, I know dealers that are going to need that stock because they're still relying on just-in-time inventory. But the biggest thing is, taking out those short-term loans, buying the inventory, getting the money up front from the client so there are no changes, the inventory is there, and then, even with that, you still have to deal with surcharges. We're constantly getting surcharges as soon as the product come in that we ordered a year ago. Now it's 20, 30% more money. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody, the client, the installers that are out in the field, and the sales reps.
You mentioned your warehouse is well stocked, and I think that now's a good time to talk a little bit about this. What we've seen happen over the last few years, more and more integrators are relying on their peers to help them out of a tough spot. So just since Jim mentioned that his warehouse is stocked full in surge protectors, but there is an opportunity, and I think for the integrators in the audience today and those that are listening in after the fact, there is an opportunity to get the products that you need if you are in a pinch. You just need to start working your network. So I think it's a good opportunity now, somebody who's a communicator and a networking person, start building that network and find who your friends are in your region, find who your partners possibly could be in other regions if you work outside of a single market, and start to identify where you might be able to pick up some pieces and parts should you need them on a project. It's happening more and more. Manufacturers are a little bit more relaxed about their policies there. Obviously, we need to make sure that we stay within bounds there, but there is that opportunity. So I think, just if integrators, if you're not already working those channels, start talking, start communicating, let other people know what you have or what you're looking for, and get that conversation going now. It'll help you with your client expectations, managing that down the road, and maybe even shortening up some of those timelines to getting those projects done. So just wanted to kind of re-elevate that.
Good point.
Keith, Avi, any additional points on managing client expectations? Customer expectations? Keith?
Well, it's all about communication, right? First and foremost, you need to communicate with the dealer base, with your clients, to ensure that if you have to reset expectations, they know why and what the impact is, not only on their end of their lifestyle, but also the dealer and what they're chasing in the way of the parts, and reach out, right? Reach out to your network. You have a consortium in place. You know who your competitors are, but in times like this, it's your competitors that can turn out to be your friends, because they're also holding inventory. And if they're holding inventory that is not something that they need at any point in time, then it's just, it's a survival mode, and that's what we need. That's what we need in this industry.
And remember, that's going to help everybody's cash flow, right? So Jim may be sitting on some inventory. It's getting towards the end of the month. He wants to pay some bills. Another integrator needs that inventory. It can help his cash flow and help that integrator close some deals. So it's not necessarily just about you as an island anymore. Remember, we're all connected. And I think if the one message that we've learned through this supply chain crisis is just that. All dominoes fall, everybody is connected. The supply chain is a lot smaller than we ever thought it was. Everybody sort of had this just-in-time theory. There was a lot of stuff going on in the background to make sure that when an integrator hit their local distributor, that box was waiting for them. Unfortunately, a lot of that broke, and we learned more about supply chain. I know way more. The fact that I am sitting on this stage right now is shocking, because 3 years ago, I was not your supply chain expert. Not by a long shot, okay? This is trial by fire. We've all gone through it. We all need to lean on each other. We all need to have good communication with each other. The level of expectation that your clients have is directly related to the message that you're putting out to them, whether it's manufacturer to distributor, distributor to integrator, or integrator to client. The more we talk about it, the more we're involved in it, the more that we understand the ramifications of it, the easier it will be when things work out right and when things don't work out so right. And I think the difference between a big company and a little company involved in all of this is simply the size of the bet you're willing to place. Small companies can succeed in this space just as easily as large companies. It's not about putting cash down, it's about having the right connections and knowing the right people.
Okay, so Avi and Keith, let's just say that half of our audience is probably representing a company of three people or fewer. Here we go. Should smaller companies react to the supply chain issue differently than larger firms to stay competitive?
Personally, I don't think so. I've seen plenty of smaller companies succeed by using the methodologies that we've talked about, connecting with their neighbors, connecting with others online. I mean, silly things like there's a couple of Facebook pages where the integrators all go to learn about what's going on in the industry, and I've seen lots of messages back and forth. Hey, do you have this group of Lutron devices? Or anybody got a Control 4 this or a Crestron that? Trust me, the manufacturers are not going to put the screws to you now. When things are good and everything is flowing and they have plenty of boxes to sell, the manufacturers may step in and may enforce some of their regulations. Right now, they want you to be happy and they want their customers to be happy just as much as you want them to be happy. So it's less about everybody sort of following the rules to the letter, and I'm not a rule breaker, I'm not trying to advocate for that. Right now I'm saying everybody is in this together and we're all trying to work on this together. And if we can do that, the little guys have just as much of a chance as the big guys.
And from my perspective, the little guys, boy, can they pivot, right? They can move on a dime. They can look at the schedule of equipment. They can determine the feature set and recognize if what the client is looking for is something of a corner case, and if there's the ability for them to substitute on some other type of technology, or simply do an upgrade install at a later date, right? They think a little bit more out of the box from what I've seen over my years in the industry. So from my perspective, I think the little guys actually have a better chance at succeeding. Because when it comes to the leverage, the leverage that a larger installer has tends to get negated when supply chain gets constrained, right? And then it's the smaller contractor that has the ability and the wherewithal to do a pivot because they don't have to go up a chain of command in order to make a change. And it's all about that personal touch with their end user, with their homeowner, and just communicating what it is that they're up against and coming to a consensus without settling for less.
Any closing thoughts on that, Jim?
All right, so yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, we hit our 45th year this year. I can tell you the last 3 years have been so stressful and so strainful for everybody in business, including the clients.
Yeah. All right. Well, as someone who's rather famous in the industry says, the time is the time, and it is time. So, any questions from the audience before we wrap? Okay. All right.
We did such a good job. Nobody has any questions. We've answered every question anybody could think of.
Well, I think it's because the car alarm went off and they all thought we were going to get run over or something. So yeah,
They'll come and find us later. Hunt us down.
All right, guys. If you would, starting with you, Avi, if people wanted to find, follow, engage with Blue Sav or yourself,
It's very easy to find us. So you can find Blue Sav at BLUESALVE.com. We are also on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and all those normal places. And you can find me very easily at avirosenthal.com. So if you need to find me, I'm like the easiest guy in the world to find.
And from my perspective, I'm on social media at crestron.com. We have our booth here. I'll be here all day if there's anybody that needs to ask another question from the standpoint of what we're fighting here in supply chain. And just like to thank you, Katie, for having us.
And then I can be reached at jim@hometronicslifestyles.com.
Beautiful. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for managing the supply chain crisis. It is definitely a large topic, but hopefully you learned a little bit here, have a few more tools to put in your bag to take home, and continue to navigate through all of this. Thank you so much for joining us today. Enjoy your rest of your day at CEDIAExpo. We're finally back in person. Woohoo! Have a good one.